Great morning, great morning, great morning. 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Day.
Yeah, it is. It is a great day. We're here for the It's About You radio show. We're here every Tuesday morning, Eastern Standard Time, on WDRB Media, the voice of the community. My name is Maurice McDonald. I'm your host each and every Tuesday morning, designed to enlighten, to inspire, to motivate you to be the very best. I don't take this opportunity for granted. This platform, I enjoy it. Designed to help people be the best they can be. The goal is to get into your ear, hopefully into your heart, into your minds. With that said, each and every Tuesday morning, I give you the quote of the day. The quote of the day is a very simple one. It is the idea from Les Brown. He says, it's not over till I win. He says it's not over till I win. So no matter what you're going through, setbacks, temporary setbacks, that's all it is. It's temporary. He says it's not over till I win. You keep pushing. You keep pushing. Even though you may say, I lost. No, loss is part of the process. Losing is part of the process. Lose often, fail quickly, and get back up and keep pushing because it's not over till you win. Your morning motivation quote this day is brought to you by MauriceMcDonald.net. MauriceMcDonald.net. Go there and learn all about your amazing gut microbiome because all disease begins in the gut. Check out that P84 to get that gut correct. Ladies and gentlemen, you already know this month, it was Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but also it is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And let's just put it this way. Those of you who know my story, I've been a law enforcement officer for 30 years, retired, and professional school counselor, and now teaching at the college. But during that part, there was a major part while I was a law enforcement officer. Again, I was the only one. No one didn't know this, but for 13 years, I was a part of a batterer intervention program. And that's where I got exposed. Well, I grew up in DV. You all know that. I've shared that story before. But the idea of being an officer going out there to the homes, I gravitated to the children who were victims of domestic violence. And then I got involved with a program that was a batterer intervention program. I mean, court-ordered men and women who assaulted their partners, and they had to go through this program. And so that's where I cut my teeth, and I learned so much. Well, I have the pleasure of having my guest speaker today, the director of that program back then, and now she has her own program called Impact. I'm going to allow her to tell about it, and we're going to talk about that word domestic violence and what it is and what it is not. And so my guest today is none other than Miss Bea Cote. Hello, Bea. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on your show. I'm very excited about it.
No, I'm glad to have you. I've been wanting to have you on the show because I know nobody better to talk about DV than you. So let's talk about this. First of all, let's talk about what is domestic violence. For somebody who's listening here, because I'm going to go out and put the myth out here right off the bat. Somebody thinks somebody got hit. So tell my guests what domestic violence is.
Right, and that's so important. That's one of my platforms. I want to inform the community that domestic violence isn't like you see on the billboards with somebody with a black eye. Most domestic violence, in fact, is not criminal and not physical. Most domestic violence is about coercive control. And so to define domestic violence, we say that it is a repeated pattern and sometimes an invisible pattern of behavior that's designed to keep somebody in their place. And that could be physical abuse, physical violence, and it could be emotional abuse, and it could be simply keeping her from working or setting her up to fail. All of those things to keep her in her place in a position that's a power down position. And so that's basically what it is. And when we talk about the pattern and the pattern being invisible, what we mean is, just like I said, that most abusive behaviors are not criminal. So it's really hard for people to identify and to understand that behaviors are abusive if they haven't been physical. So, for instance, I was in one abusive relationship many, many years ago, and he never hit me. And so because he never hit me, it took me a long time to figure out that these other things that he was doing were actually abusive behaviors. And then the other thing is that the abuse doesn't happen all at once. It kind of creeps up. And by that time, you may be in a fully committed relationship. You may share a house. You may have children. You may be married. And there's a lot of shame in realizing that everything that you dreamed of and planned for is gone. It's all an act. And you have to, so let's say that the abuse starts right after the marriage, the wedding, right? Right after the wedding, even sometimes on the wedding night, on the honeymoon. How are you going to go and tell your parents who paid for this wedding? This isn't the guy you married. And so that's, we stay in abusive relationships because of hope and denial at the beginning. And then it gets worse and worse, and what we do is we also silo the abuse, which means that 1 week it may be stopping her from leaving after a fight. And then he apologizes, I'm so sorry. But 2 weeks later he pushes. Well, he's never pushed me before. So I don't see that as the beginning of a pattern. And then a month later, he throws her down. Well, that's the first time he's ever done that. So that's not a part of a pattern. So it's really hard to see those patterns when you're inside it. And of course, you're not going to share all this stuff with other people.
Right. You're right. And that whole shame with it, I know you've been saying her and she, because most percentage of victims are female. And that doesn't necessarily mean there are not men who get assaulted. That does happen. But when you look at the stats, that's why I want my audience, in case someone's listening, who's never doesn't know, saying, "Well, she's only talking about she." Well, I know one man. Yeah, there may be one. There's always one unicorn.
Let me give you. There's all. Well, let me tell you a little bit about that. So, the local big hospital here at Atrium, Maine, keeps really good numbers on the amount of folks who come to the hospital with domestic violence-related injuries. So these are people who've been seriously assaulted enough to warrant a trip to the ER or the hospital. And out of those, 95% of them are women. And then when we compare that to the last time I was able to get statistics on the people who are criminally charged with acts of domestic violence, assaults or threats of harm and death. So that's about 22% are women. So we've got women who are 95% of the victims of serious assaults, and yet 22% of the people arrested and charged with domestic violence. So what our numbers actually tell us is that women are rarely physically abusive. Now, women may be abusive in other ways, but most of the time they're not going to cause physical harm. So the threat of death is like very small. And then also back to those hospital numbers, what's interesting to me is that the men who are abused, that 5%, are often abused by male partners.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so the number of women who actually cause physical harm to intimate partners is like 2% or 3%. And so it's doing a disservice to that 95% of women to focus equally on both women and men as abusers. So therefore, we focus on the huge main problem, and that is men who are violent and abusive toward women in intimate partner relationships or with exes.
So
It frequently happens with exes.
absolutely. Just so my listeners can know your background a little bit, tell us a little bit about your background and how long you've been in this field.
Maurice, I am old. I am old. I so badly want to retire, at least partially. So I started off doing child protective services in rural South Carolina, and Maurice, I've got to tell you, I'm still trying to help out some of my kids who are in their mid-50s.
I got you. I know the feeling.
Yeah.
And so.
And then, So
in terms of
then
DV,
after that, in terms of DV, I then worked later on. I did a couple other things, and then later on, I worked in Charlotte as a child protective service person, and this was in the 90s. And we were just starting to recognize domestic violence as a serious problem with regard to the safety of children. And so I decided to be that person who would go to all the domestic violence trainings to so that we could begin working on these domestic violence cases in child protective services. That's how I became involved with domestic violence. And then I left there to go run that program that you talked about, and that was in 1999. And then I left there in 2006 and started my own program in 2007. So we are 18 years old.
Yes. And your program is called Impact. And
yes.
What is Impact?
So Impact is a state-certified program that we now call, we've moved away from the language batter intervention. We then moved to battering intervention, and now in North Carolina we're called DVIPs, Domestic Violence Intervention Programs. But I am part of a national group that is building a national coalition. And so we're trying to change the language nationally to abuse intervention programs. So that's the language that we're doing now. So our program is certified by the state in 5 North Carolina counties, and that is Mecklenburg, Union, Gaston, Lincoln, and Cleveland counties. And we are part of a nonprofit that is called Impact Plus Abuse Prevention Services.
Okay, all right. And so, in other words, this is also designed for men or people who've been arrested for assaulting their partners and have been convicted.
No, they don't have to be. So
Okay.
in my more rural counties, that is the case, that almost all of our clients come from either the criminal courts, the civil courts on restraining orders, or DSS, Child Protective Services. But we welcome and we're really happy to have guys that we call non-court referred or self-referred. Often these guys are people who know they need help, but they've never been in trouble, or they come from couples counselors, marriage therapists, who have identified that domestic violence is a problem with the couples that they're seeing, and counseling, therapy is never recommended. Couples counseling is never recommended when there is domestic violence present. And counseling is also not recommended for abusers, for those who abuse their partners.
Yeah, because I know a lot of times people say, well, let's just go to let's just go to counseling. We'll just
Go
work
to
it out.
counseling, right?
Right. Or they'll go to their
Yeah.
pastor and they want to have, that.
Right.
And he's not trained, doesn't know. And then she gets re-victimized.
Right, exactly, because domestic violence is often happens in a power-up position. Somebody has more power in the relationship than the other person, or may have all the power.
Right.
And so when you've got a power differential in a couple, then seeing a couple together is going to be very ineffective at best and dangerous at worst.
You're right. So right. And here's a question I know you hear a lot, and I want my listeners I'm going to ask this question. I know you've heard this many times. Why don't she just leave? If she is being victimized, that's that magic question. Why does she stay? Can you answer that question for the leaders?
Yeah. Sure, I'll be happy to. And we're hearing that question less now, I think, but it's a victim-blaming question. It assumes that she has the power to stop the abuse or to leave. And if she is in a power-down position, she may not have the power to leave the relationship. She may also know that it's more dangerous for her to leave than to stay, because he may have told her in no uncertain terms what would happen to her if she left. And she knows that he's capable of doing this, but she can manage him. She knows his patterns, right? She can manage him better staying than leaving. If she leaves, she doesn't know where he is. He is going to freak out if she leaves, because he's just had his power tested. And also, I want to talk about that too, about what might happen if she leaves. And when we look at numbers, we often hear that 75-78% of women who, or not women, but all, who leave a relationship with an abuser, I said that wrong. So, of domestic violence murders, 75-78% of them had left their abuser. But that's not true. It's actually much higher than that, because those statistics are based on women who had actually set up household elsewhere, and doesn't take into consideration the women who were leaving, just left, or were trying to leave. If you look at that, the numbers are over 90% of domestic violence murders happened because she dared to leave him.
Yes. That is so true.
Right, and so if that's the case, why would you leave? Why would you leave if you know there's a good chance he's going to kill you? So even if that's not the case, even if you're not afraid, because you may not know yet, because he hasn't flipped out yet. So if you don't know how dangerous it is to leave, and you leave, who wants to go to a shelter? Who wants to uproot their children? Who wants to hide? Who wants to look over their shoulder all the time? Who wants to leave their neighborhood, their neighbors, their church, their community, their groups? Who wants to be on the run? You're going to hedge your bets, and you're going to stay and manage it.
Exactly. And that you mentioned about your church, a lot of time there's that pressure to stay.
Yep.
Pray for him, family members, girl, look at the house you live in, the car you drive. He only does it on the weekend. Never mind, there's 52 weekends in a year. But at the end of the day, that whole perspective of, at least I know if I leave, and then there's a financial piece. If I don't have
Absolutely.
my credit cards are stopped, or
Right.
I don't have
And we
funding.
see that a lot in wealthier, more well-to-do couples too, where abuse happens at the same rate, but there's a lot more financial control. Let's say that they're a traditional couple and they decided that she would stay at home to raise the children. Well, now she has no access to the money. So it may look on the surface like, he may get her the tennis bracelets, he may get her, the membership to the club, all the massages that she wants and everything, as long as she stays.
Right. Yes.
And then, and their friends may be couples friends.
Yes, indeed.
He may not allow her to have her own friends who may encourage her to leave him.
Right. That part. I got a question here. You think about how common is domestic violence in the U.S. and why is it often referred to as a hidden epidemic? The only time you hear about some major case, a celebrity.
Well, and I want to point out that celebrities often get away with it.
Yes.
Too. It is an epidemic, but I think it's coming out in the open more. But the question that is still never asked is how many men abuse. And the reason is because who wants to fund that research? Men?
Right.
Men with the money who are heads of corporations? Are they going to fund that research to find out how many men are actually abusive? And what kind of abuse? How are you going to know how many people are financially controlling, emotionally abusive?
Right.
So all we really know is based on the numbers of arrests and convictions. Well, we can't even get the convictions number, but the number of arrests for domestic violence is all we really know. And I'm sorry to say, with you having been a police officer, that we have focused entirely too much on domestic violence in the justice system. As a justice system, a courts, a criminal problem. And as long as we continue to do that, the message is not going to get out there to all the people who really need help, who have never called the police or identified as domestic violence victims because of all the reasons we mentioned earlier.
Right. And
so when we've got these family justice centers coming into towns, people need to understand that is a wonderful, wonderful, but extremely expensive model. And it does not include people who work with the abusers who are the cause of the problem. The model does not include people who work at the root, the cause of the problem, like me. And my hashtags, Maurice, I've got a couple. One is, only abusers can stop abuse.
That's right.
The other is, intervention is prevention. And then my little catchphrase is, every single time that there is a discussion in a community about domestic violence, people who work with the abusers need to have a seat at that table.
Absolutely.
And with the family justice centers, we don't.
Yeah, and that's a problem.
You can will it away. You can will these guys away, and I say guys because most of my clients are men. So you can wish and will these guys away, but they're still in relationships half of the time with the victims.
Right.
And so what are you going to do? You're going to throw a lot of money, and not enough money, to help patch up victims. But the damage is already done. Mm-hmm. So what are you going to do to prevent him from abusing the next victim or this one again? And therefore, building a generational systemic problem of abuse. So you're influencing your children. And most children who grow up witnessing, and when I say witnessing, it doesn't have to be eyeballing. Most children who grow up in a home where there's domestic violence will have problems later on. Have you heard of the ACEs?
Yes.
The Adverse Childhood Experience.
Adverse Child, yeah, absolutely. Because, as a matter of fact, we did that as a school counselor in high school. Being there, I got exposed to having so many students. As a matter of fact, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. We'll pick up with that. Did you know all disease begins in the gut? That's right. Your gut is your second brain, guys. It's connected to your liver. It's connected to your hormones. All things start in the gut. That's why you need to get your gut right today with P84. Loved by him. Awesome product called P84. 84 fruits and vegetables organically grown all around the world to help detox every organ in your body, provide all the nutrients, everything you need in your system to get your gut right. Simply go to MauriceMcDonald.net. MauriceMcDonald.net. MauriceMcDonald.net and learn about P84 to get your gut right so that you can have an awesome body. We're back, guys. We're back here on the It's About You radio show, WDRB Media, voice of the community, here today talking about domestic violence. My guest, Bea Cote, is here. She's dropping some nuggets, and she's the person that's involved with Impact and sharing some amazing information. We left off talking about the ACEs, what that is, and if you would be, let my audience know what ACEs is and how it's used.
Sure. This was there have been lots of studies done about ACEs, and it really holds up in terms of the validity of the ACEs. So what the ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences, it's just a list of 10 questions that help adults identify things that may have been traumatic to them as children. And one of those questions is whether or not one parent or caregiver was abusive to another. And the higher the score, the higher out of those 10 questions, the higher the number, the more chances that as an adult you have been physically and mentally impacted by those traumas that you experienced as children. So the higher the score, the likelier you are to have heart problems, diabetes, asthma, addiction, all of those things that are physical could be related to the trauma you experienced as a child. And so therefore there is a higher chance of children who are exposed to domestic violence being impacted throughout their life. And also it changes the DNA. It could actually change the DNA, which means that your great-grandchildren are going to be different if you abused their great-grandmother. Isn't that crazy?
That is, and this is the thing about this, what you're talking about. And I know people who've never heard this are going, what? Because,
right.
Yes, and the idea of it, because the impact of domestic violence is a tree that keeps growing. It starts as a seed, but it becomes a redwood, okay? California redwood, that's what it becomes, huge because of the effect. Mm-hmm. As I told you, teaching here at the college, one of the courses I teach, I talk about ACEs. We have a video, there's a medical doctor comes in talking about the impact and the research, what ACEs does, what they're showing in the area where people grew up in DV. And while talking about it, it triggers some of my students who are 23, 24 years old. They grew up in DV.
Are you talking about the doctor, is Nadine Burke-Harris?
Yes.
Okay. She is fabulous, and I would encourage everybody to just go to YouTube and search for TED Talk ACEs, and if you need her name, it's Nadine Burke Harris. And she is just amazing. And one thing she talks about that really makes an impression, because I showed this video too, one thing that she talks about is how your brain responds to trauma. And, about all the brain chemicals going crazy during a traumatic act. And she talks about if you go out in the woods and if you're faced with a bear, all of these brain chemicals are going to go nuts, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what if that bear lives in your house?
Come on.
And every night you go home and all those brain chemicals set off. Do you think they're going to keep setting off? No, it's going to alter your brain. You are actually damaging children's brains by being a bear.
Yes, I'm so glad. See, and this lets you know, my audience, that we had not talked about this. We had not rehearsed this. We're just having a conversation. And funny, because I show that video in there in class, it does impact. And we have that discussion about it. And that's why it's so important for people going to work in this field to know about it. Because I teach in human services.
Absolutely.
The individuals they may be working for Child Protective Services. They may be working at DSS. They may be working a nonprofit for DV. So they need to know the history and also know what effects it has on children. As I say, I grew up in domestic violence. I look back at this now, at 3 years old, I remember my mother's first husband assaulting. And they say a 3-year-old can't remember. That's a lie.
And boy, you remember, and which means it impacted you.
Yes, the layout of the apartment they lived in, where it is there in Durham, North Carolina, right across the street from the cemetery. I drew out the layout of the house, my pajamas I wore, all the things, him slapping her, and the physical fights. I remember seeing it. And then she took off and left, going to New York City. So as a child. And there I was coming back as a police officer. When there was a domestic violence, I always gravitated to the children. When it was all over.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
You're trying to protect those children.
Exactly. And
They're trying to protect you.
That's exact. And then when I went to therapy myself, I realized, that came out. And that's why they started calling me social worker. Police officer, because I'd always gravitate if dad's arrested, going to jail or whatever, if mom's going to hospital, you got to do something with the child. DSS or wait for a relative. Yeah. If McDonald's available, tell him come. He's a social worker. He can take, little that I know they would give me a compliment.
I've got somebody that I think that you might enjoy looking into. He is a former police officer. He was former detective lieutenant in the Nashville, Tennessee Police Department, and he's a speaker, a national speaker and trainer, and he was a victim of childhood domestic violence, and he made a film a couple of years ago. So his name is Mark Wynn, Wynn. If you want to look him up, I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember the name of the film, but I think that you would really enjoy that. And he is a super, super nice guy. I'm trying to see. It's called "This Is Where I Learned Not to Sleep."
Okay. Oh, that's powerful. I love that. But yeah, I'll look that up and find that, because it is so important for my listeners to understand that, and I guarantee you while here, 1 out of every 4 women is being a victim probably of DV for sure. And that means we got some people who've been victims listening. We got people who grew up listening in DV.
Right.
We got people
themselves. We've got people who've crossed the line and been abusive and may not even know that.
Exactly.
And could I talk about that some more too?
Sure,
about
absolutely.
Why people abuse?
Yes.
If you don't mind, I don't want to run out of time.
No, you're
because
good.
People ask me that all the time. Next to why don't victims leave, the question is why do men abuse? And I say again, men, because that's mostly the problem. That's mostly what I work with. So why do men abuse? So I know you're familiar with the power and control wheel, and if people want to Google that, they can. There are all kinds of power and control wheels for every demographic, every faith, every language, you name it. There's LGBTQ. There are power and control wheels for every demographic. But in the center of the power and control wheel, it talks about power and control. So if you look at a wheel like a bicycle wheel, there's a black ring on the outside that says physical and sexual abuse. That the threat of or one act of physical or sexual abuse can keep that wheel together, can keep that wheel of abuse together. But it is driven by the center, which is power and control. Now, power is a belief system. I simply have the power. Control is a behavior. I control because I have the power, because I can. Now, what I would like to superimpose on that power and control, that hub, is entitlement. And I don't mean entitlement by being rich or being born with a silver spoon, right? I mean that something inside you or them tells you that you are justified, even righteous, in abusing. So you feel entitled to abuse because you have the power and you can control her. So entitlement. Now, I'm going to take this one step further. People abuse because they have a pro-abuse belief system. I'm going to pause that there. They abuse because they think it's okay.
Yeah. I can.
So, yeah, I can, and sometimes even I should.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes even I have to.
Right.
As a man, I have to put her in her place. So because we live in a patriarchal society where men are, head of household, they're automatically power up. They're automatically power up position. That does not mean that all men abuse that power. No. Only those who believe they have a right to.
Yes.
Okay? So I ask a question at the end of my intakes, and that question is this, and I'm going to ask this of your audience, and that is, what would your partner have to do to you in order for you to justify striking them in some way?
Wow. Good question.
So people who never abuse can never conceive of anything that their partner could do to justify abuse, because that's not part of their belief system. They just look at you like all confused. Those with a pro-abuse belief system are going to say, well, not unless like I catch her in bed with my brother, or like if she abuses my kids. So they already have permission built in.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Yeah.
That's how that pro-abuse belief system works.
Yeah.
Sorry, Maurice, I just had to get that.
No. Hey, listen. You are right on, spot on with this. I'm glad because you're dropping nuggets here that people are hearing, and what you're stating is so factual. Simply because if I have the mindset that I'm entitled, I can do it because I got to keep her in line.
Right.
Because you know how women are.
And you may never cross that line because she may never cross that line.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You may not cross it because she doesn't violate your belief system. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that you'll ever actually physically abuse, but if you believe that you have the right to, then it's going to be so easy to cross that line. One example. So say that you would never abuse her unless she cheated. Well, now she's on the phone with her best friend who's in crisis, but she won't tell you who she's on the phone with because her friend's in crisis. And you're like over here going, who are you talking to? Who are you talking to, right? Well, you run to, well, she must be cheating if she won't tell me who she's talking to.
Exactly.
So now I'm going to beat her because she's cheating.
Right.
So she fit that excuse. She brought it on herself for cheating.
All she had to do was tell
when
me.
She never actually cheated.
Right.
Right.
She never, it's kind of like they're saying that if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Right. There you go. I love that.
Yeah, and you're going to perspective. Yep. You see what you want to see because it's already there. And plus,
it's already there.
The fact, because you mentioned children. You mentioned some things about domestic violence in children. I noticed that, as a school counselor at a Title I school, I had a lot of children coming in there with issues around DV at home, and all kinds of things of boyfriend assaulting mom, boys faking sick at school to get home to protect mom. At 14, he's telling me, and finally I got it out of him, and because he wanted to go home, and the nurse said he feels fine, everything's fine, everything checks out, and then I got to talking to him. He said, my mama, my boyfriend. So now we had to get the police department involved, and he tried to run him over with the car the day before, and mom hurt her back at home, and so now it's one of those proactive things. Now, okay, you got to stand out. I think. Also, so many people see children as, well, he'll be okay, or they exaggerate. We talked about the ACEs, the impact that it has on children, but what about the part when children grow up in DV themselves and they start being aggressive? I have a young lady, high school, that was not supposed to be dating. Mom and dad forbid her to have a boyfriend. She's 15. And she's dating a boyfriend who's abusive. Who does she go talk to? Right. And she end up talking to me.
She's going to go talk to, well, she may not talk to mom because she doesn't want to worry or burden mom, or she may have been led to believe her mother is weak. Because that's what her abuser, her mother's abuser, has led the children to believe.
Yes, that does happen, and they got to control everything. But what is some of that impact on children who grow up in domestic violence to repeat this cycle as they become teenagers and adult themselves?
Well, so they may repeat the cycle as victims or as abusers, but more than likely they're just going to not know what a healthy relationship is. And so they're going to enter into unhealthy relationships, whether or not those are abusive. So if you don't have that modeled for you, how are you going to know? How in the hell are you going to be healthy in a relationship if you've never been taught how to be?
So if I'm in a dysfunctional relationship.
Yeah. So it may not be abusive, but let's say you're attracted to people that you can control, or how about people with addictions that you can help, and then you get into codependency relationships. It could work itself out in all manner of dysfunction. It doesn't have to be just abuse, but basically you're not going to know how to be in a healthy relationship, and you're not going to look for one. I had a therapist tell me a long, long time ago a couple of different things, and one was that you should choose people that you want to be in relationships with. In other words, not let them choose you. You choose them. And the second one was choose people who function at least as well as you in all the important areas.
Wow. Ooh, those are two good ones.
Yeah,
That's two good ones right there. Because I always say there are people, who can go to a football stadium with the whole 60,000 people. Two dysfunctional people will find each other. You'll bypass all good people that are there, but you'll choose somebody that's not, the old song, the love songs. Oh, you complete me. No, I want somebody already complete. I don't want a project.
Yeah, no, you need to already be complete.
I need you to be complete. Exactly. But so
you need to be like a whole functioning human being.
I need you. That's exactly right. But also, I look at this like what you said. Choose somebody that has. What'd you say? At least the function, the qualities that you have.
Functioning at least, yes, exactly.
At your level.
We're talking about emotionally, socially, families, children, parenting, financial. All of those things you do not need to go in there expecting for somebody to complete you, which means, does that mean you're broken?
Yeah, I see your point. That is so true. And what was that first one you gave? That I think the first one.
Oh, you choose.
Yes.
Who you want to be in relationships with. Don't just let them choose you.
Oh, that is true.
If you feel that you need to be chosen, that somebody needs to love you and care about you and choose you, then what about your needs? And what about you needs to feel chosen?
Right. That is powerful. That is, because how many times people go, well, he chose me, and you really didn't want, there were some things, qualities you didn't like. Well, I'll fix him, Well,
see, the thing, too, is, Maurice, as humans, what we want is not necessarily love. We need to feel that we belong.
Yes.
And if people choose us and we don't feel that we belong anywhere, that helps us feel that we belong, which is also another reason why people stay in abusive relationships.
That's right.
Because at least we belong. At least we have a partner. What will happen to me if I don't have a man? What will happen to me if I don't have a woman?
That is straight. Oh yeah. And that leads to another whole issue right there. I got to have somebody, and sometimes I choose the wrong person. I'm getting there 30 years old, I'm not married.
You grew up with dysfunction, right? How are you going to make the right choices?
That's right.
How are you going to know how to choose?
That's right. You choose the wrong person. And if you think about this next question, I want to ask you, think about this. What are some signs family and friends and maybe even coworkers can look for if they suspect there may be somebody's experiencing abuse?
Somebody who's being isolated, increasingly isolated.
Okay.
From their friends and family and community. Now, that's different from, some people get into new relationships and it's all, pink glasses and roses and they're all involved in this new. But somebody who is retreating from the other things they enjoy from their friends completely. And so that's probably the first sign of somebody who's at least in a controlling relationship.
Yes.
You may not see any signs of physical abuse until it's too late.
Right. Because, as we know, I want to clarify. Yeah. So that physical abuse doesn't show up immediately.
Keep the lines of communication open.
Right.
Don't let the abuser isolate you from your friend. Isolate her from you. Right? Keep the communication open, but also don't make life more difficult for her. What's really important is that we believe victims. Right?
Right.
There's something, Maurice, have you ever heard of the Golden Rule?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Have you heard of the Platinum Rule?
No.
Okay, so the golden rule is do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
The platinum rule is do unto others as they would have you do unto them.
Okay.
Which requires you thinking about what other people want.
Gotcha. What other people want.
Yeah.
So that's taking the selfishness out of the picture.
Exactly.
Okay.
You nailed it.
That is.
So now you have to start thinking about other people.
Yes. What are their needs? What are their concerns? What makes them tick?
So if you would want somebody to confront you about your husband, right?
Right.
Does that mean that another person wants that? Or is that the last thing she wants?
Right. That's good. Now, that's
right.
Real
It
good.
takes you out of it and forces you now to consider another perspective.
That is so good. So good. Information
You
has
got
been.
lots of nuggets today.
Listen. That's why I knew. I've been waiting for this for the longest, and I said I knew the person I wanted to talk to and have my audience hear this information simply because your user experience, and plus I thoroughly enjoyed those years that I worked in the program you were director over, and I learned a lot from the other facilitators there. As well. As a matter of fact, that networking got me to the college, of course, being there. And so it's been powerful. Yes, it is. And open those doors. And I just know domestic violence became a passion for me, number one. I grew up in it, and I know so many other people have. And the fact that my mother left at my age 4, I got exposed to a real man when she remarried, and he was the opposite. And then, of course, my grandfather.
Oh, good.
I was exposed to men in my life that were the opposite of him, the opening doors.
Good. So that helped.
That helped me.
Yeah.
That helped me, but shaped me to be the man I am. And I just think about how many other boys and girls, and how many women girls chose men just like their father who were abusive. They grew up in that, and they chose that. They chose that path. Okay, so listen, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. Did you know there's a battle going on inside your gut? That's correct. Good and bad bacteria are battling daily for your health. Introducing P84, Love Biome's brand new awesome product to help your gut microbiome to get in order. Imagine 84 fruits and vegetables grown all around the world in good soil for good health. A 5-year-old, 80-year-old, it doesn't matter. We all have a gut, and you need P84 in your gut to help you feel better, sleep better, and also detoxify every organ in your body. Simply go to MauriceMcDonald.net, MauriceMcDonald.net, and you can order your P84 today to help get your gut in order. Remember, P84, go to MauriceMcDonald.net, MauriceMcDonald.net, and get your gut right today. We're back, guys. We're back here on WDRB Media, the voice of the community, the It's About You radio show, with me, Maurice McDonald. My amazing guest today, Miss Bea Cote, has been dropping gems and nuggets all day. This time, I can say we're going to have to do a part 2 at some other time to pick up on this. There's too much information for 1 hour. So, Bea, if you would, in the time we have remaining, tell us about your nonprofit and any other things that you might want to share.
Okay, great. Thank you for the opportunity to do that. So Impact, as we talked about at the beginning of the show, is a program that is part of our nonprofit. The nonprofit is called Impact Plus Abuse Prevention Services, and you can find us at www.impactdv for domestic violence.org. So it's impactdv.org. And you'll be able to get a lot of information there. We're also on Facebook. You can find us there on Impact plus Abuse Prevention Services there, or you can actually friend me at Be a Boss Cote. And my last name is Cote with an accent mark on the E. And you can also find me on LinkedIn at the name Bea Cote. B is B-E-A, by the way, Cote. And so you can find us in all those places. We are a very difficult sell for donors. Donors are not like automatically thinking, oh, let me give my money to this agency that works with abusers. We are not a sexy sell for donors until they come to understand how important it is to work with abusers to stop abuse, and that we are the only ones actually saving lives. We are saving lives by offering people the tools they need to stop being abusive. And so we welcome people to donate to our nonprofit. Where the money goes is to make the program affordable for everybody. Otherwise, if people can't afford the program, they're not going to be able to attend and benefit from it by learning. And we receive no funding at this time from anybody. So we have no public funds. We have no grants. We do this work on a fee-based basis, and the money from donors helps us lower that fee to a bare minimum for almost every client. We see folks who are court-ordered, sent by therapists, sent by social services, sent by pastors, sent by couples counselors, and come on their own unless they have pending criminal charges. Then we want to wait until that gets resolved so that people can feel free to be really honest with us about everything that's going on in their relationships and in their lives. We also have a program that's funded by the nonprofit that's called Legacy, and that allows guys who've completed the Impact program to continue to do their work and to serve as mentors for the other guys who are still in the program. But they've got to continue to do their work. What I tell these guys is, I said, do you go to the gym? And they'll say, well, yeah. And I said, do you have a plan, for what you want to accomplish with this gym membership? And they might say, well, right now I'm just going for maintenance. And I'm like, bingo. You have to have a maintenance plan. You can't look at just changing a whole lifetime's worth of belief systems in 6 months, which our program is a minimum of 26 weeks long.
That's good.
But you can't expect that to change your whole lifetime's worth of belief systems and it stick without any maintenance plan.
That's exactly
so the legacy program, so the legacy program is a maintenance plan, much like your attendance at the gym, and you have to work it. You have to work at it.
That's right.
But you can also, like at the gym, you can help other people understand the equipment.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Well, I'll tell you what,
Even
B.
become a trainer yourself.
We're going to have to follow up on this again because this is a lot of information we're going to be sharing with this. But I want to give them the 800 number for the National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-779-SAFE. So that's 1-800-799-7233. 1-800-799-7233. And that last 7233 is SAFE. So if you need to, or you can text. If you text START and then 88788, you can text that. But either way, you can go online and find that as well. Thank you so much for this information today. I'm so glad I had this opportunity to finally get you here. I know you're busy, and so am I. But I want to have you back again, and we can pick up from this and go on with some more. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad we were able to meet.
Absolutely. Guys, listen, we'll see you next Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the It's About You radio show, because we're going to be in the building.